It's March 27, 2009, and we are here today in front of Jerome L. Green Hall for the 6th Annual African Economic Forum.
The African Business Club at the Columbia Business School, the African Law Students Association at the Columbia Law School, and everyone else who's been connected with organizing this important conference. It's a particular pleasure and honor for me today to present you our keynote speaker. Ngozi Okonjo-Iwela is presently Managing Director of the World Bank, a post to which she returned after a long career. As you may know, Dr. Okonjo-Iwela served from June to August 2006 as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, overseeing Nigeria's external relations, and prior to that, from June 2003 to June 2006, she served as Minister of Finance and Economy and head of Nigeria's much acclaimed presidential economic team responsible for implementing a comprehensive homegrown economic reform program that stabilized the macroeconomy and tripled the growth rate to an average of 6% per annum over 3 years. In October 2005, in that position, she led the Nigerian team that negotiated the cancellation of $18 billion, or 60% of Nigeria's external debt with the Paris Club. This deal also included an innovative buyback mechanism that wiped out Nigeria's Paris Club debt and reduced the country's external indebtedness from $35 to $5 billion. She also oversaw Nigeria's first ever sovereign credit rating of BB, a rating that grouped Nigeria with other emerging market countries such as Vietnam, Venezuela, and the Philippines. Before these remarkable achievements, she prepared herself well. She was educated at Harvard, but even in a very tough environment managed to finish her degree in 3 years rather than the usual 4. Actually, the average is more like 4.5. Many Harvard students take a second or third year off due to exhaustion. She was able to finish this 4-year program in just 3, and then received her PhD in Regional Economics and Development from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In addition to these earned degrees, she has been recognized with honorary degrees from a number of leading institutions, including the Doctorate of Letters from the University of Dublin and Trinity College, Ireland, and an honorary Doctorate of Laws from Colby College and another from Brown University, to name just a few. In 2006, you may recall, she was named by Forbes magazine as one of the 100 most powerful women in the world.
There was the fertilizer crisis, food crisis, the fuel crisis, and now the financial crisis. And I often joke that I don't know why they all start with F. Something must be going on there that we're not quite sure about. But these external shocks, the fertilizer, food, and fuel are somehow also linked, really hit the continent hard, because in real terms, the price of food went up by about 50% on the continent. As you know, in our countries, in most of the countries, poor people spend 50 to 70% of their income on food. So when you have a food crisis, this is not just about, it's not like, this is real. This is about people going hungry, people who could die from malnutrition. So this was a very severe crisis that the countries tried to deal with. And so they tried to adjust. What we saw from the side from the World Bank and the international institutions were countries doing appropriate things policy-wise. Many countries decided to remove tariffs and taxes on food imports for those who are food importers in order to make food cheaper for their populations. Many diverted budgetary resources to enable more purchase of fertilizer and so on, in order to increase, and seeds, improved seeds, in order to enable production, increased production. The first was, there's no question, is the fact that the countries undertook a number of very important, sometimes painful, macroeconomic reforms to stabilize their economies, bring down the rate of inflation, tackle their fiscal deficits, implement appropriate monetary policies and so on. Sometimes these reforms are controversial, particularly when you work at the World Bank or the IMF, because many people feel, well, I'm from the World Bank, so I speak only for the World Bank, that some of these reforms can be quite painful. But if you sit on the other side of the table, as I did as finance minister, you will note, as I said to many of our labor leaders and our citizens, that, you know, you have to tackle your fundamental problems. You really cannot grow the economy unless you have macroeconomic stability. So you need to do what it takes. So we needed to grow up. I even use that word. And not think in terms of looking for who we're going to say is making us do what we need to do, but instead to stand back, as we did with the Nigeria program during those 3 years I was finance minister, and say, what are the fundamental challenges we face? Craft our own reform program, which when we did it was tougher than any program the fund or the bank had been trying to get us to do, because we recognized that at the end of the day these things had to be done and implemented. And I think what we see in these figures is that many African countries did begin to do that. Some reluctantly at first, but increasingly there was a recognition with very good results. Inflation rates were brought down. As I said, the macro imbalances were tackled. And except for a few countries, you know, these gains began to show. And this was what was fundamental then to tackling other issues in the growth of the countries. I think the second factor, no doubt, was that there was an increase or a rapid rise in commodity prices in the early to mid-2000s, which contributed to this growth. But the important point is that this rise in commodity prices was managed in a different way from the past. Those countries that were lucky to be able to export these commodities and benefit from sometimes the windfall gains, save them in a manner that enabled them to be used increasingly towards the real development, the development of the real sectors.
Hi, I'm Corinna Bordovik. I'm a second year at the School for International and Public Affairs here at Columbia. I'm also a member of SPAN, the CP Pan-African Network, which is the host of the African Economic Forum that's going on this weekend. And I'm also one of the organizers. And I guess what I think is really important about this event, which is the 6th year running that we've had it, is that it's really a forum for policy students, law students, business students, and anybody involved in any of those sectors, to come in and really not just talk about Africa and think about Africa, but figure out how we can make change with the resources that we have here. So I think very often Africa is thought of as a continent of scarcity, of problems, but there are a lot of opportunities.